Do you prefer to do solo shoots with your cosplay? Or do you prefer to have that control in your hand and know exactly what you want? Or do you like collaborating with others where you're getting more input from the photographer and the people who you are taking the shoot with?
I personally like to do both. Like I ever since like for example, especially ever since like COVID and like the pandemic and everything, I've been doing a lot more self shooting. I had worked with photographers a little bit like a few months later in like many months into it the year and stuff last year, but like it wasn't like as often as I usually was, like whenever it was like a convention was going on and when cons were going on, and I would be working more with photographers than myself. But like I've just also learned to like self shoot, and I don't mind self shooting myself when I want to just make content whenever I want, or like it's something to like post or show people, and it's like at least it's good for until you go to your next photo, like professional photo shoot, I'll say. So that's how I see it. I like doing both. Like both have its benefits, I feel.
I've heard from other cosplayers that they'll go through different eras. Sometimes they'll like working with photographers because it gives them a good idea about what cosplays really fit with their style. It's always about body language when it comes to producing a high quality set. Anyone could put on a cosplay, and that's great. But if you want to kind of improve and stand out, you have to personify that character a little bit, which I've seen you do on your platform. Do you think that newer cosplayers who are learning off of TikTok, who are learning off of doing stuff on their own and not so much with other photographers, are going in a direction that will stunt their growth? Or is this perhaps the direction of cosplay where everything is more focused on what can I do in a room with a ring light and my own resources and creativity?
Hmm. I wouldn't say that it would stunt growth. I feel like everyone's different. Like just like any hobby you do, whether it's for fun or you want to do it I guess in quotes professionally. Like I feel like you can always grow no matter how you start out, because I know not everyone can afford like professional photographers, or you may start with like your friends or stuff taking your photos, and not that there's anything wrong with it, because that's how I started. Like when I first started out like cosplaying, it was mainly like my friends and I would go hang out every weekend and take photos in our area, and it would just be like one of those like funny moments of like people staring at you and cosplay and stuff. And but that's how I started. Like I wasn't like in the scene where it was like by in quote professional photographers. It was more like I just had my friends take my photos kind of thing at first, and like that's how I started out. Not that I don't allow it anymore kind of thing, but it's just I just sprouted into like scouting out photographers and like all that jazz, like because sometimes it's just that the problem was like sometimes like I would have certain friends or acquaintances take my photos, and like I sometimes would either never see them again, or like it would take a long ass time to like get them back or whatever. And I just also in general I sometimes got tired because sometimes there would be certain con moments where like I wouldn't get like body photos of like my cosplay in general, and it would make me frustrated that like I put all this work and or effort into it and there's no pictures of it. And it's one of those things where it kind of like was dragging my self-esteem down kind of thing. So that's when I just started to like scout photographers a little more often. And not that I haven't had bad experiences with photographers, but it's one of those things where like a good chunk of the time at least I'm getting like nice professional photos, and like of like them posing me, and like you're paying for like to look really good in this cosplay in the photo because like the photographer I feel like should depict the idea of like what they're photographing or like whatever the cosplay is. And I feel like you're paying for like that professionalism. But that's just how I see it. But in general, there's nothing wrong with starting out with like, your friends taking your photos or whatever. It's one of those things where it's like, I feel like it's also your choice of like, what do you prefer? Because I know some people are, kind of shy or wary of photographers in general, which I can understand. I just feel like, that's totally up to you and like what you want to do, like how you want to because obviously also there's a difference between like a photographer's photos and then like when your friends and family take your photos kind of thing. So it also depends, I feel like, in my opinion, what you're okay with.
Yeah, there's definitely a lot of different paths that a cosplayer can go down, and it's going to be something that they encounter only when they encounter it. I know some cosplayers that are extremely choosy with their photographers, and it really has nothing to do with the clout. They just like maybe two or three photographers that have known them, that maybe know them outside of cosplay, so the transaction becomes so much easier to work with, and I understand that. But I also know some people who they feel that they want to work with as many photographers as possible, and when you try to do that, when you try to expand your craft with collaboration, there's a good chance you're going to run into the issues that, like you just mentioned, you're going to have people who are unreliable or they just kind of disappear, and it's like, why do you have my photos if you're not going to work on them, and ghost me? Like it's a whole thing. But yeah, like you also had mentioned, people are different. Some people prefer being on TikTok. Some people prefer doing cosplay only when they're streaming on Twitch. Others live for conventions. And now there's so many viable options to be a cosplayer. It doesn't really seem like any reason to prefer one or the other. Experience them all.
Yeah, like I feel like whatever you want to do, like whether it's you are a big convention person, you like to show off your cosplays, which I totally get. I'm the same way. When like I do big projects, I like to like make these big projects for like conventions and stuff and show it off, because like when you work hard on something, or like you put whatever effort you had put in or whatever, you kind of just want to show it off. And that was like hard for me, I think, when this pandemic started, just like a lot of people, because like, not that I wasn't uninterested in cosplay completely, but it kind of also was like one of those moments of like, because there was no big cons coming up again, it's like I wasn't working on big much. I just mainly did I did a lot of like makeup tests, and because I like doing makeup on the side too, and like so I would do like cosplay makeup tests or just makeup in general, and I played around a lot with it during the pandemic while I was home and whatever, and that was nice just to play around with, because at least for the first time in a while at the time, I felt that I was like having fun with it again, because sometimes like, not that cosplay's not fun, but sometimes when you're working on like, like big projects and stuff, sometimes it can get overwhelming and stressful, like especially
Work, yeah.
yeah, like right before a con, and it was kind of getting to me a little bit during certain periods. So it was, in a sense, I feel like, in quotes, I had to have like that fun period to motivate myself again and get into it again, like I was and stuff, because I felt like at certain times like I kind of wasn't into it as much as I would usually be. But that's how I see it. Like, I think like you can be a cosplayer no matter what, whether it's like you just mainly are on TikTok and do shit at home, whether it's doing photos shoots in like your backyard or whatever, whether you go to cons and like you do photo shoots there. I think there's no, in quotes, right way of doing any of those things, like, because I think getting yourself out there, no matter how you do it, I think that's the cool part. Like, you can do it any way you're comfortable with. Like, it's also just like the fact of, you're being creative and you're showing the world basically. And I think that's the cool part, honestly, in general, no matter how you do it.